Oh, hi. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here. It is Tuesday morning, August, I believe, the 5th, in the year of our Lord 2025. And a lot going on, man. I don't know why I'm even saying this. I slept so good last night. I usually get 4 to 5 hours a night of sleep. Last night I slept almost 10 hours. I could not believe it. I went to bed at 7 o'clock and I woke up once during the night and had to get up, and then I went back to bed, and when I next woke up it was 5 in the morning. I could not believe it, and I had a cat pawing at me. I don't know how long I would have slept had it not been for that. But anyway, now I feel great, so thank the Lord for that. I really needed it. I also hadn't mentioned in a few days about Marina, as many of you know that follow the channel. I had to take her out to Missouri a little over a week ago to help out with a difficult family medical situation, and she remains there, of course, for the foreseeable future, I suppose. And I heard from her this morning, and it's just a tough situation right now that they're all going through, and I don't mean to be so evasive with information, but it's just not. I'm not really at liberty to talk much about it right now, but I will eventually. But right now, her family really needs your prayers, and I would appreciate that very much. She says hello, she loves you, and hopes to be back soon. Maybe we can get her on camera for once. I don't know. We shall see. All right. There's a few things I want to cover. I'm kind of overwhelmed. There's so many things going on. I guess I could theoretically get on here and stay on here all day long. It probably wouldn't be that great of a show, but there's just so much going on. I still have not really done a dive into what is happening with the Clinton Obama Russian dossier hoax that has now come to light. The whole deal about Russia interfering in the election. I need to get to that eventually at some point because it is a massive story. It is huge. And I heard a statistic on the radio yesterday. I can't give you a source, and I don't know how true it is, but this commentator on the radio mentioned that 60% of Democrats still believe that there was Russian involvement in the 2016 election to benefit Donald Trump. And now we have what we always suspected was true. We have the actual verifiable proof that Obama/Clinton commissioned this phony dossier for the purpose of tying Trump to Russia in order to affect the 2016 elections in Clinton's favor, and it was all a lie. It was all a hoax. Now, let me just say this. Just bear with me, but I've got to say this. Folks, this thing was a hoax. It was a hoax from the get-go, perpetrated by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, okay? You need to understand this. Other players involved in this hoax were James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and the list goes. There were other players, and now that we have proof that they did this dirty, evil, criminal deed, something has got to be done. There have got to be some criminal referrals. I heard one commentator saying that actually it was Robert Barnes, if you don't know who Robert Barnes is, you need to look this guy up. He is absolutely brilliant. Robert Barnes. He's all over the place. He's easy to find, and he is fantastic. I'd love to have him on my show one day. But he was saying there's several ways that the Justice Department could proceed, or that Congress could proceed. One thing they could do with Obama is actually impeach him. And you might say, well, wait a minute, he's not president. Doesn't matter. Congress tried to impeach Donald Trump, if you recall, while Biden was president. They were doing everything they could to keep Trump out of the White House. So theoretically, I doubt this would happen, but it could. If the political will were there, which it probably isn't. It definitely wouldn't happen if the GOP loses the House next year. But theoretically, they could impeach Barack Obama, then convict him in the Senate, which would open him up in that manner to assorted criminal charges. I don't know whether that's necessary or not. I love at least the sheer symbolism of it, because this evil man who lorded over us for 8 years, this man who hates his country, this man who wanted to, quote, fundamentally transform America, and he did. He succeeded in a large degree. He gave us Obamacare. Thank you, John Roberts and John McCain. He needs to be held accountable for the crimes he has committed, as does Hillary Clinton and the other players that I mentioned. This needs to happen. Heads need to roll. Orange jumpsuits need to be worn. Perp walks need to be made. And what Robert Barnes was saying to an interview he gave with Sky News recently, it may have been yesterday, I didn't check the date, was that for the benefit of the American people, we need to have confidence in our government, which is really low right now. We need to have confidence in our criminal justice system, in our Justice Department. We need to see that the laws actually mean something, and that if you break them, there are repercussions and consequences, no matter what your economic status is or your political status is. A message has got to be sent, if only for the confidence and morale of the American people. We need to be shown, no, you cannot break these laws. You cannot do what Obama and Clinton did and get away with it. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to see an Obama or a Clinton in an orange jumpsuit. I wouldn't bet on that. But we at least need to see some of these other players convicted in court, such as Brennan or Clapper or Comey et al. This needs to happen, folks, if only for the confidence of the American people. Otherwise, we're out here just saying, well, I guess you can just break the law if you're rich and powerful, or if you're a politician and there's no consequences for you, which is going to be true if they don't do something and it's not right. This has got to be done. Justice has got to be served for one or more of the people that were involved in this phony Russian hoax. Something has got to be done. One thing that bothered me about Trump, during his first term is he would not go after Hillary Clinton when he had copious amounts of evidence against her criminal behavior. And I don't know what it is about Trump. He just doesn't want revenge on his enemies. He just doesn't want to take that leap into justice being served on people like the Clintons. It's like he's always just forward looking. He just doesn't want to get his hands dirty. It's like, well, we're just going to move forward. I think we can do better. No! It's like you going out and committing a murder and the sheriff just saying, well, that was really bad what you did, and I should arrest you, but you just better not do it again, and I'll let you go this time. No! There has to be consequences for criminal behavior. Trump is, at times, his own worst enemy. He should have dealt with this during his first term. Lord knows enough Americans wanted him to, and he wouldn't do it. And we're just, at all of his rallies, you can remember the chants, lock her up, and he would just ignore them. He would just kind of smile, but he wouldn't say, yeah, I'm going to lock her up, and that's what he should have said. I'm really getting off track. I didn't mean to go here, but just bear with me. It need be said. You have got to exact vengeance on these people, folks, because it's the right thing to do, which is to say justice needs to be done so that the American people will see, well, okay, I guess we do need to obey the law. Otherwise, you have the potential for anarchy, and we don't need that. You just can't tolerate these people. Why is Letitia James not in a court of law? Why has she not been perp walked? Why is Fonnie Willis in Atlanta? Why has she not been put in handcuffs yet? We're waiting and waiting and waiting. So like I said yesterday, these cases die on the desk of Pam Bondi. She'll throw us a bone every now and then, but folks, this has got to happen. These people have got to be held accountable for this hoax. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but there it is. All right, I'm sorry, let me move on. We'll get back to the hoax because that deserves videos of their own. I was going to start with an article that appeared. Actually, Marina sent this to me, and she said, "You're not going to believe this." She was right. I couldn't. This article appeared in the Gateway Pundit yesterday, which is a really good publication on the internet for you to read. The headline, it was posted yesterday, August 4th. The headline reads, "Trump to withhold disaster aid from states and cities that boycott Israel." Now listen closely. You might say, what did you just say? I said what you heard. The Trump administration has announced that any U.S. state or city participating in or supporting boycotts of Israel will be ineligible to receive key disaster preparedness funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. I thought we were doing away with FEMA. This unprecedented policy affects at least $1.9 billion in critical aid used for search and rescue equipment, emergency management salaries, and disaster readiness infrastructure. According to newly released FEMA documents, newly released FEMA grant terms reviewed by Reuters, local governments must certify that they will not engage in any commercial boycotts specifically targeting Israeli companies if they wish to remain eligible for federal support. And the article goes on and on and on. You need to check this out and read the full article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But basically, this is what Trump's government is saying. If you have a natural disaster in your city or state, environs, whatever, before we send you federal aid to deal with the natural disaster, you're going to have to show us that you are not boycotting Israel in any way. Because if you are, you're not getting help. Can you freaking believe this? This is unbelievable to me. Now listen, I've already got my own feelings about FEMA and about the concept of federal disaster relief when federal disasters happen. I got mixed emotions about it. My personal feeling is if I'm going to buy, let's say, a home on the Gulf Coast of Florida, then it's a given that I also must insure that home, which is going to be exorbitant in cost. I remember the late, great Rush Limbaugh once saying he had a home on Palm Beach, Florida, right on the coast. And he once stated that he didn't even insure his home because the rates were so exorbitant that his thinking was, and it's the thing, this is where a lot of really rich people live, and their thinking is, if a hurricane wipes out my house, I'll just rebuild my house out of my own pocket, which is fine. That's fine. If I wasn't in that economic class, but I had a Gulf Coast home, I would have to insure that home. That way, if my home got destroyed in a hurricane, I'd have the insurance funds to rebuild my home, thus negating the need for FEMA funds and what have you. Now, we could debate about federal disaster relief and funding and FEMA and all that. That's for another time and another place, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. This is unbelievable to me. This is unjust for Donald Trump to tie a person's allegiance or lack thereof of loyalty and devotion to the state of Israel to procuring federal funds after a disaster strikes. So if you live in a coastal town in Florida, for example, and your town gets wiped out by the strike of a hurricane, you better hope that nobody in your town is boycotting Israel, because if they are, then you're just SOL, if you get my drift. Folks, this ain't right. This is ridiculous. As an American citizen, you should be able to feel about Israel however you want to feel. If you want to love Israel with a purple passion, that's your business. Go right ahead. But it should not matter in times of emergency, a weather emergency, whether your town gets wiped out by a hurricane or tornado or earthquake or mudslide or fire or whatever. You shouldn't have to pass a litmus test which involves your devotion to Israel or any other nation before you are eligible for federal assistance. This is ridiculous. You can't do this. This is unbelievably immoral and unjust. You know, as whether you're religious or not is irrelevant here. As Americans or just as decent people, it seems to me that there is implicit just in our sheer humanity that we have a sense of compassion and even obligation toward our neighbors. I mean, if my next door neighbor fell on hard times and they had no groceries in their house, no food in their house, and their power had been turned off, and I'm living next door to them and I've got plenty of food, you know, I got a few dollars in a coffee can or what have you, and I am aware of the plight of my neighbor, and I'm not trying to be heavy-handed about it or pharisaical about it and tell you what you're supposed to do. But don't you agree that as their neighbor, I should feel some sense of moral obligation to help somebody that is my neighbor who has fallen on hard times if I am able? If it wouldn't hurt me to sack up 3 or 4 bags of groceries and take it over to my neighbor and maybe, give them $100 or whatever, but whatever it takes, whatever I could do so that they can at least get their power turned back on. Don't you think that that's, I don't know how you would feel, and I can't preach to you about this per se, but for me, I'll just say for me, I would feel just out of basic human decency, some sense of moral obligation to my neighbor to help them out if I am able. If I'm not able, okay, I understand. But if I am, and I am aware of their plight, I would feel just as a decent human being, I should try maybe and do something. If their kids are running around barefooted in freezing weather, I mean, I don't think you can just sit on your hands, folks. So my neighbor falls on hard times, and I take the aforementioned groceries and a little bit of money, and I go next door to my neighbor and I say, hey neighbor, I am aware that you're starving, you've got no food, your lights have been turned off, and so I sacked up some groceries for you so that you can eat and live, and I'm going to give you a little bit of money so maybe you can, get your power turned back on. But before I give you this life-saving food, and before I give you a few dollars that I scraped together for you, or before I give you some shoes for your children to wear, I need to know one thing. Do you or do you not support Israel? That is exactly what is happening here, folks. The Trump administration is saying if your municipality or town or state is boycotting Israel, you're not getting any FEMA funds if disaster strikes. That's just unbelievable to me. You can't attach a immoral requirement. When you're going to go and help somebody that is destitute, you don't go there with a questionnaire. You just help them out of basic human decency and compassion. I'll help you, but first I need to know your feelings on Israel or any other nation for that matter. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to tell you it's the truth. And more Americans are waking up to it every single day. It is a fact that the tentacles of Israel are all throughout the American government. And that should be self-evident to anybody that is paying attention. Where is Speaker of the House Mike Johnson right now? I don't know where he is, but I know where he was as of yesterday with several other members of the House. He was over in Israel at the Wailing Wall with his little yarmulke on, like he's a Jew, and he's not. He's a Baptist. And they're over there praying at the Wailing Wall. What is that? Are you an American or not? What is this deal that I can't help you, although you're destitute, until you wave the Star of David? I mean, we had attempts. This is just unbelievable to me, folks. We had attempts in Congress, I believe it was last year, to pass legislation under the guise of anti-Semitism where you could not say anything that was unbecoming or unacceptable in the eyes of Congress about Israel or those of the Jewish religion. Do we have a First Amendment or not? If I want to criticize Israel or Judaism or anything else for that matter, should I not as an American be able to do so? We live in bizarre times. Now, I don't know what's going to come of this, but something needs to happen, folks. You cannot attach a ridiculous, immoral requirement like devotion to Israel to be a requirement of receiving federal aid in time of natural disaster. Man, I swear lately it's just one thing after another with this guy. It's just mind-boggling to me. I went looking because I've been hard on Trump lately, and with good reason. It's justifiable. But I've been thinking, man, could I find something good that he has done? Because I have said he has done some good things, and he has. Well, I did find this. How about some good news about him? And I found this. Now, this is a little old. It happened last week, and I've been wanting to talk about it. I just hadn't got to it yet. I found this article sourced on many websites, and most websites I found, well, I say many, maybe a dozen. Most of the websites, news-related websites that lean left were just wailing about this, but I'm sure that you've heard about this. The article I want to reference is from Cato. Think what you will about Cato, the Cato Institute. But the headline reads thusly: a win for liberty. Congress defunds CPB, NPR, and PBS, to which I said, glory, hallelujah. It's a dream come true. CBP, is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Let me read just a paragraph from this story. In a small but politically significant win for liberty, Congress has passed the 2025 Rescissions Act, eliminating $9.1 billion in previously allocated funds, including $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which helps fund NPR and PBS. President Trump is expected to sign the bill. I salute you, sir. Job well done. This marks a hard-won victory for fiscal conservatives and libertarians, especially scholars at the Cato Institute who have called for defunding the CPB since 1977. While the programs are not formally abolished, they have now been defunded for the next 2 years, a precedent-setting shift in public policy. Rand Paul of Kentucky, Senator Paul, said this is a big win for taxpayers. We shouldn't be subsidizing businesses and corporations. Let them survive in the free market just like every other business has to. The bill, unquote. The bill also rescinds about $8 billion from USAID and other foreign aid programs. They should have corrected that. USAID is not an aid program. The aid is not for aid, as in I'm giving you aid, but whatever the case. So Rand Paul is right about this, and I've been saying the same thing for years, and finally it is a dream come true. Congress has defunded the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This affects, as the article stated, NPR, which is nothing but a left-wing, anti-American organization, a leftist organization, which purports to be a news outlet. It's like CNN or NBC or MSNBC. That's all it is. Except for these people, we have to pay for this bilge that you listen to, or may not listen to. You shouldn't listen to it. Now think about the ramifications of this, folks. First of all, kids got educated long before there was a Sesame Street or an electric company. I remember I had, in the first grade, I started learning how to count with an abacus. Bert and Ernie weren't helping me. They did come along shortly thereafter, and I thought it was kind of cute as a kid. I never really got that big into Sesame Street. But the thought that, in this day and age, particularly of the internet age, where we have so much information at our disposal, the notion that if we don't have PBS and Sesame Street and the Electric Company and all these shows on public broadcasting, if we don't have these things, our children are just not going to get educated somehow. That is ludicrous, as we all know. How many sources are there on the internet, or for heaven's sakes, at the public library, for a child to get educated even before they go to school, for heaven's sakes? The idea that taxpayers need to fund PBS so that our kids won't be stupid is absurd on its face. And as for NPR, how many news outlets are there, folks? You've got the traditional broadcast news outlets, you've got radio, and now again with the internet, you've got podcast galore, YouTube channels galore, including the best one on YouTube. I mean, there is a dearth of information. If you want to find out something about anything, go to YouTube and you can educate yourself. If you want to learn how to build paper airplanes, go to YouTube, and in an hour you'll be well on your way to becoming a paper airplane construction expert. You can learn anything now. These programs, if they ever were valid, are the model is grossly antiquated and outdated. We don't need NPR, and what Rand Paul is saying is correct. NPR can still exist on its own. Go position yourself in the marketplace and let's see how you do. The reason NPR doesn't want to lose funding from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting is because they know they've got a crappy product and they can't compete in the open marketplace, in the marketplace of ideas, because there are so many news sources out there. I don't know what the statistics are, but I dare say most Americans who are trying to gain information and news are not going to NPR for it, or broadcast networks. I would dare say most Americans are probably listening to podcasts anymore and YouTube channels that are news-oriented. I think that's a safe bet. I don't think anybody's saying, I need to find out what's going on today. Where is NPR? Who is saying that? Only left-wing, limp-wristed libs. That's the only people who drink their coffee at Starbucks. This came from my Cuisinart coffee pot. And it's good. So look, I put up my channel. Nobody's funding my channel except a few hardy subscribers from time to time, and for which I'm truly grateful. But I don't get any federal funding for my effort, nor do I expect anything. I'm in the marketplace. I'm offering whatever product I'm offering, and I'm fine with the marketplace responding, which is exactly what NPR or any other entity should do. Nobody's saying we can't have NPR. Nobody's saying we can't have Sesame Street or PBS. What we are saying is, if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. But we're not going to pay for it. The taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for this. The notion that if we don't have NPR, we're all going to be illiterate with regard to the news is preposterous. Everybody knows it's a lie. So when you hear these left-wing outlets whining about NPR being defunded, just ignore them. It's just silly. It's just ludicrous. All right, listen, I know I'm long today. Some of you don't mind, and I appreciate that, but I really want to cover one more story before I go, and this has to do with the declining birth rate in the United States. How many of you know that for a long time now we have had a declining birth rate in the United States? We have a declining birth rate, and this should be alarming, folks. Should be alarming to anyone. Now, I'm citing statistics from a website called usafacts.org, and they cite the CDC. I'm no fan of the CDC. You should be able to understand why. Dr. Fauci. But it says, how are fertility rates calculated? The CDC defines the general fertility rate as the number of live births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. Now, in the year 1909, the birth rate for women in this age group was about 125 to 30, it's not exact, between 120 and 130 live births in a sample size of 1,000 women from the age of 15 to 44. And it began to decline actually into the 20s and 30s and the early 40s. But then the birth rate in the United States exploded, relatively speaking. And you'll understand why. This was the post-World War II, which was a boom time in America. I wish we could go back to that time. Soldiers were returning home from the war, and the birth rate just really increased exponentially, and that gave us, of course, the baby boomers. I'm one of them. And in 1960, the fertility rate reached just over 120 per 1,000 women. That was the year before my birth. But right after that, the birth rate began declining again, and it's been declining ever since. And the last statistic we see is from the year 2023, 2 years ago, and the birth rate, the fertility rate, was 54.5 births in a sample size of 1,000 women. In other words, you take 1,000 women, 54.5 of them are pregnant. We got a half baby out there somewhere, which seems to me to be really low. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this, folks. You could talk about the welfare state. You could talk about government policy and tax policy, which has a negative effect on the whole concept of marriage and family, when you get right down to it, if you ask me. And then, of course, you have the women's movement, the feminist movement, which changed the perception of women's roles in society. I say this not as a Neanderthal, by the way. I think women should do whatever they want to do. But there was no doubt this not so subtle attack on the concept of the basic nuclear family that I can't give you a date, but I would say at least the 60s or the 70s with people like Phil Donahue and Alan Alda and Oprah Winfrey, whose rhetoric was basically hostile toward the concept of pregnancy and women getting married and giving birth, and a woman and a man, a husband and a wife, raising a family in the traditional sense of the word. And there has been a war about, there's no doubt about this, folks, there's been a war on that concept for several years now. And also because of tax policy, in a two-parent home, it became necessary in many cases for both husband and wife to work in the marketplace just to keep the lights on and raise their kids. You know, when I was raised, my mother was a homemaker. She raised 3 boys. My father worked, and he earned enough money so that my mother could just be a homemaker and raise her children. And that is ideal if you ask me, but I understand it's not that way today. I understand now it takes 2 incomes. And why is that? I mean, there's so many reasons for this, including tax policy and inflation and this war against the traditional family, if you ask me. Whatever the case, and you could insert the concept of birth control into this discussion or what have you, even abortion. But the declining birth rate is really alarming, folks, for obvious reasons. If our birth rate is dying, then our nation is dying. We've got to have another generation of little Americans coming along just to sustain our nation. The only way to offset the declining birth rate that I am aware of, if you're not going to have children naturally, is to import people. And that's a dicey proposition. Now, thank God Donald Trump is on top of this problem insofar as illegal immigration goes. But we have seen an influx of people to offset, I guess you could say, the declining birth rate, people who are oftentimes hostile to America. The very idea of immigration, it seems to me, is you're immigrating to the United States because you want to be an American. You want to assimilate into your nation, your new nation, and adopt them as your own. You want to salute the flag, and I know this is mom and apple pie, I get it, but it's the truth, folks. You need to, if you're going to immigrate to America, it should be because you love America and you want to be an American, and everything that it represents you want to appropriate for your own life, and that's the way that it was at one time. But now we have a generation, if you will, of Americans from places like Somalia who are coming to towns in America and virtually taking them over. A lot of these immigrants, illegal or otherwise, are Muslims. And I don't want to get sidetracked here. I know I'm going long, but bear with me. This is important. I don't have any problem with whatever religion you adhere to, whether it be Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, any other ism. I got a little bit of a problem with Islam, the peaceful religion of Islam, and I'm going to tell you why. If you're a Christian, a Jew, Jewish, if you're Buddhist or the other religions I mentioned, generally speaking, these are peaceable religions. People who subscribe to these religions are not looking to put a gun in somebody else's back and say, convert to my religion or you're going to get it. Nobody's saying that. If you want to become a Christian, that is not something you can be coerced into. It is by choice, by you voluntarily saying, this is the religion I wish to subscribe to for these particular reasons. And that's all fine, well and good. But Islam, folks, and Islam is not that old, relatively speaking. It's only been around since the 7th century. But Islam, there's no doubt of this, it expands itself through violence. And that's just a fact. But what happens now is you have Muslims in places like Minnesota, where what's her name is, Ilhan Omar. They are taking over or attempting to take over entire communities with the express intent of turning American towns basically into Islamic strongholds where American law is replaced by Sharia law. Something's got to be done about this. You can't trump our law with your law. We have to be one nation with one set of laws. But you see this happening in Minnesota, both in the whatever town it is where Ilhan Omar represents, and the next mayor of Minneapolis, who is a devout Muslim, the probable next mayor of New York City, who is a communist and a Muslim. I've got a problem with Islam because of the nature it uses to expand itself, which is through violence and coercion. Christianity does not do that. Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, we don't do that. We're happy, the devotees of these religions, we're happy to tell you about our religion, but we're not going to use coercion to inculcate you with our information. You know, it's not Christians, it's not Buddhists who push homosexuals off of tall buildings, for heaven's sakes. It's not Buddhists or Shintos who make women wear burqas and view them basically as slaves. So this is a problem, folks. You can't have this as a nation. You've got to have one nation, one set of laws, and you can't allow this infiltration of immigrants, illegal or otherwise, who say we're not coming to your nation to be Americans. We're not coming to your nation to assimilate. We're coming to your nation to transform your nation town by town. And we're not going to obey your laws. We're going to replace it with our laws, our Sharia laws. This is right in line with what Barack Hussein Obama said when he said he was going to fundamentally transform America. This is alarming, and something's got to be done with it. Now, as a counter to the declining American birth rate, I got to do it, folks. I'm going to reference something that happens now in the largely Christian nation of Russia. This article appeared in Medusa.io, and the headline reads, "On Pregnant Women's Day, Russia reframes childbearing as a patriotic duty. Amid the war and a declining birth rate, the Kremlin has introduced a new holiday, Pregnant Women's Day." This is a real thing. In Russia, they have a Pregnant Women's Day. Can you imagine that in America? We'd have the exact opposite. To mark the occasion, maternity clinics, hospitals, and even vocational schools hold workshops on newborn care, share information about state support programs, and hand out gifts. Officials hope to address the country's demographic crisis by reframing pregnancy as a public contribution rather than a private milestone. But sociologists warn that such efforts do little to change the material realities facing young families. And on and on and on the article goes. In 2023, Russia officially recognized Pregnant Women's Day as a national holiday across the country. Regional governments now mark the occasion with events held in maternity clinics, hospitals, family consultation centers, libraries, and even museums. This is about promoting care and respect for pregnant women, a culture of motherhood and traditional family values, said Ekaterina Kirichnikov, a pro-government activist and director of the Urals for Life Foundation. "We want them to feel proud of carrying new life, to find joy in it, and to share that joy with others," she added. "When a woman is pregnant, she is beautiful." Amen, sister, I agree. Listen to this. In 2008, one more thing, with the backing of both the government and the Russian Orthodox Church, Russia began celebrating another holiday, Family, Love, and Fidelity Day. It emerged amid growing concern from both the state and the church over the country's demographic crisis in what they viewed as the cultural encroachment of the West. Wow! This is fantastic. This is exactly 180 degrees from what we have in the West, where we have demonized motherhood and the whole concept of getting pregnant and having children. In the West, we look at a woman who has more than 2 or 3 kids like, man, what are you doing? Why are you having so many kids? And in Russia, Putin is saying, go for it, man. Have as many as you want. And they give government assistance. If you have, I think, a family, I forget the name. I wish I'd looked this up. I mean, they reward childbearing in Russia. They applaud it. They see it as a wonderful thing, which it is, folks. Family, Love, and Fidelity Day. Can you imagine such a thing in the United States? We are so ass backwards in the West, it ain't even funny. Ideally, a man and a woman would meet, fall in love, get married, and just start procreating. Families are beautiful. Having children is a wonderful thing. I know a family in Birmingham. They don't have any more now because they got too old, but bless their hearts, they had 10 children, and upon giving birth to the 10th child, the husband, who I know personally, looked at his wife and said, I want another one. Now you may say, he's crazy. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. If you look at your children as being potential great adults that go out and do great things in the world, we should look at having children and childbirth in a positive light, not a negative light. We have such a death culture in America, and Russia is saying we're going to celebrate women and celebrate motherhood and celebrate with the Family, Love, and Fidelity Day. Rock on, President Putin. I dig it, brother. I dig it. I mean, I wish I could attend the parade. That would be fantastic. All right, I've gone way long. I don't know if that's okay with you or not. If it's not, I apologize, but you can cut the video in half, I guess, and watch some of it later. Anyway, there we have it. Listen, please do me a favor and like this video. Of all the people that watch, such a small number like it. It helps my algorithm if you like the video. So please do that and subscribe if you have not yet. Comment down below. I'd really love to hear what you have to say about what we talked about today. And thanks so much for joining me, everybody, and I will see you very soon.